What steps can a writer take to make a three-dimensional character?
Ooh, good. I think you got to start thinking about who they are physically, emotionally, socially. You got to figure out what their vulnerabilities are, what their flaws are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, what their insecurities are, because we're all motivated by that. We're motivated by our insecurities. People do things because they're trying to feed whatever hole is on the inside of them. So I do a whole trauma and stress lesson during my No Writer's Block course, because every one of us has a trauma. Even if your trauma may seem small to me and my trauma may seem small to you, we each have a trauma. And on some level, that trauma created our insecurity, and our insecurity is what feeds us. That's our motivation. So I always give the example of the characters in The Wizard of Oz. Because the lion is cowardly, he says, if I can get Dorothy to Oz, then I am not a coward, because what I have to go through makes me brave. It's not because he really cares about Dorothy and wants to take her to Oz. You know what I mean? It's because he's a coward. And so at some point he has to decide, okay, in order to be brave and get rid of the cowardly stuff, then I got to go through something that gets me there. So that's the thing that motivates, him to actually do the external thing. So that internal thing is really the motivator for the external thing. And so I feel like that's true for people. And if we realize that about people, then we realize that about characters. And then that's how they become, that's how they get depth and they become more relatable.
Well, if we go back to Harry Potter, what are some of his wounds that then show up and we...
So his biggest wound is identity, right? He's not being raised by his parents. So that's in and of itself going to be a trauma. Whether you knew it, he knew. He always knew that these weren't his parents. So that's something that has always been inside him all of the time. Some people don't find that information out until later, and then the trauma starts, right? But for him, he always knew, these are not my people. On top of that, the people who were raising him were mistreating him and abusing him. So that's a second trauma. And then on top of that, he's a weirdo who can hear snakes talking and sometimes make things disappear. And so all he's thinking is, I'm this other that no one loves. So I think that's one of the reasons he has a hero complex, that he has to save other people and always be looking. And that's why his friends are so important to him, and why he has to save people, because of that whole of identity of who am I, who loves me, who do I love back, and where do I belong?
How do we get a viewer to care about a character?
I think it goes back to that same stuff. Like if I can understand why you do what you're doing, then that's going to be far more relatable, because we're almost all of us are working from that same kind of place, right? So for example, if I am always seeing a person being lazy, it's easy for me to just assume, oh, they're lazy. But if I understand that really they're overwhelmed, and they don't know where to start, and they want to be able to ask questions, but don't know what question to ask. So they're really frozen in that spot and not being lazy, that I can understand. Now I've been in a place where it's like, yo, I need some information, but I don't even know where to begin. For whatever reason, I've been equipped to then figure it out. Maybe this person hasn't. So maybe I now have a different perspective of who that person is, by understanding that they're just frozen in time because they don't know which way to go, because they don't have those kind of skills to do so. Now they're not lazy, they're overwhelmed. I think all of us can relate to overwhelmed people more so than we can relate to a lazy person.
It seems like there's so many films with great production value, especially now, but sometimes there's a disconnect with the character. So this goes back to, how come we're not always caring about these characters, but the world looks great? There's just something missing about our emotional connection to the characters.
If that kind of thing happens, then I would definitely say it's probably something that happened in the writing. It's probably something that's not on the page to attach that emotional journey to the physical journey. And so we're missing out on it. Sometimes that happens purposefully because they were more excited about the world and they were more excited about the production value, and that's what they wanted to give you. And they figured that part would be the thing that makes you excited about it. And sometimes that happens, Sometimes people, depending upon what they're making, who's making it, why they're making it, who has the money to throw at it, it may just be, I want to tell this big, fantasy story, and that's the part that matters. So that's what you get. It just really depends. Again, going back to those executives who have now decided to purchase this script and take it into development. If they care about the characters, then it's gonna get pulled out. If they don't, it might not. You know, if the brand of the place is, we just want to make big, you know, slasher films that you don't care about, the people just die, then they're not going to spend time on trying to make you like them. They're going to give you just one or two things so that you know that this is the good guy and you know the slasher is the bad guy, and then they're just going to make a movie. So it just really depends on what they're trying to get across, you know, when they're doing it. But definitely, if you're not able to emotionally connect, then something happened in the writing. The question is, why was it allowed?